Hello and welcome to the first new video of the academyofworship.org YouTube channel. We are going to be covering kind of the ground up. I'm starting over. I'm making sure that we get a nice clean start on what we're going to be talking about throughout the videos on this channel. We're going to be covering a wide range of things, but right now we're going to stick to the basics. Today's video is about just your bass guitar tone. So if you're a guitar player, stay tuned. We're going to be going over a couple of basic things. If you are a not guitar player, you can either stop the video or there might be some stuff you can glean off this video for the instrument that you play. It's up to you. Anyway, moving on. We're going to be playing through just a nice clean amp. Now, one thing I want to make sure that I'm clear about is for a lot of the videos we're going to be making, I'm not going to be telling you what gear I'm playing. I'm not going to be telling you specific settings and things, because one of the things I've realized is, especially as worship guitar players, we get hung up on gear. We get hung up on the giant pedal boards, the really expensive pedals, whether they're boutique or not, super expensive guitars, things of that nature. And I want to get away from that and start using our ears. A good guitar tone isn't based necessarily on your gear. Can gear help? Sure. But is gear necessary, really expensive gear necessary for a great guitar tone? Not at all. But with that being said, we're going to start at the beginning here. What do you need in a worship setting to get started? And the answer to that is a basic guitar tone. I mean, that seems obvious, right? One of the things we don't think about is what we're running into. I've seen a lot of guys and gals flip on an amp, plug their pedal board in, probably not in that order, and then they start strumming chords with pedals on. That can become a mess because then you're hunting down, ooh, that doesn't sound right. With all that being said, let's jump in. Today I'm playing through a guitar. I will say I have a guitar that has P90 pickups in it, which may be different from what you play. You may have a guitar that has single coils in it, and you may have a guitar that has maybe humbuckers in it. Either way, the principles I'm going to teach you in this video apply, okay? Today I have kind of a middle of the road as far as what my guitar tone into the amp is going to be. It has a little bit of a bright top on it, but it's in a higher output pickup, so it's kind of like the best of both worlds. But if you have a guitar that has humbucking pickups in it, you'll notice that maybe your bass tone will need a little more high end in it. If you're missing some, it can get a little dark in some cases. And if you have single coil pickups, you may notice that you have to dial back some of the highs because sometimes they can get real chimey and bright, which may be what you're looking for. But again, we're using our ears. So to start with, I have my amp that I'm not telling you about into a 212 cab, and the amp right now is set to its clean channel, and all of the controls are at noon, except for, in this case, this amp doesn't have a master volume, so the channel volume is set just under noon. But again, that shouldn't matter. You're using your ears here. So here is the basic tone of this guitar going into this amp, no pedals, into the speaker cab, mic'd up. Nothing spectacular. What we're going to be looking for here is a bass tone to then allow us to have great pedal tone on top of it. You want the amp to sound great with nothing applied to it. Once you have that bedrock of tone, you can then start adding pedals, delays, all kinds, whatever you want to add on top of that. Grit goes into it well, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, there's two main components to getting your bedrock tone. If you are in a church or in a setting that is miking a guitar cab, where the microphone is placed in relationship to the speaker will matter, and also, of course, the amp settings itself. So right now we're only concerned with what the amp sounds like in the room or when you're right next to it listening to it. So right now all the controls are at noon for tone. And to be honest with you, that's not a terrible tone. I could probably use that. However, I think in this case, I'd like to hear a little bit more high end in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the high end. I've turned it from noon till about, maybe it's at 2 o'clock. Okay, that's a little bit better. I have a little bit more chime on top. It's not a whole bunch. The other thing to check, switch over to maybe your neck pickup and see what that sounds like, because you might be going into that in songs. You don't want that to sound super muddy if you have it set like that. Maybe play some stuff up high in the neck. You don't want to just stay on one chord. That's my neck pickup, my bridge pickup. With that D in there, that was pretty. Maybe try the mid pickups. Mid pickups? No. How about both pickups? That was bridge and neck. Not bad. I think that's not a bad tone. I'm actually going to add in a little bit more mids to it. Usually on electric guitar, where you're going to poke out in the mix is going to be in the mid and mid highs, this frequency spectrum. A lot of guys sometimes will pump a lot of lows in, and that can get a little muddy. So right now I'm not rolling off any lows. I'm keeping that at noon, but my middle and treble controls, if you have them, are set at about 2 o'clock. Bridge pickup. And neck pickup. For me, that sounds a little better. That's a good bass tone. I might roll off a little bit of lows. I'm rolling it back to, what was that, 10 o'clock or so on my bass knob. Sometimes it sounds great in the room, and you're like, oh, I need more bass, or the bass sounds fine. But you'll find that when you're starting to mic things up and the bass starts playing and the drums are playing and you have keyboards, it gets a little muddy and lost. So sometimes I'll just back off the lows to where I'm like, that's where I can stand it being, okay? So here's our bass tone rolled off. The bass around 10 o'clock, mids about 2, and the high end about 2 o'clock. That's my bridge, and here's our neck. And both pickups together. That's a good bass tone. I think we can use that with pedals. Now, the second thing to keep in mind, now that we've listened in the room and we've heard it with our ears, is if you are using in-ear monitors, maybe the church you're playing at or the venue you're playing at or your band or whatever is using in-ear monitors, the next thing to check your mic placement. So if you are the one responsible for this, this is the next thing you check. You're happy with it in the room. Now, put your in-ear monitors in. If you have the capability, mute all the other channels that are coming in. So if the bass player is playing, the drummer is swarming up, whatever, you can just hear your guitar. What you want to do is listen to your guitar tone and move the microphone horizontally from the outside of the speaker to the middle of the speaker and in between those areas. Usually somewhere between the dust cap, which is the center of the speaker, and where it meets the cone, the bigger part of the speaker. Right in there is usually a sweet spot for guitar, but play with it and use your ears with your in-ears in, because generally speaking, if you get that right and it sounds really good to you using that bass tone you just dialed in, that's going to be what you're sending to front of house, the guys that are going to be mixing you out front in the church or at your venue. And they're going to be happy that, wow, that's a decent guitar tone he's sending me. And again, this is just your bedrock guitar tone. Once you have those things dialed in, that's going to help immensely when you turn on your pedals and start changing your sound on top of that. But we'll get to that in the next video. Thanks for watching. Please go visit academyofworship.org. I've got a free gift over there to give you. So check it out, download your free gift, use it, and we'll see you next time.